This is the commentary version of my 100% FNAF 1 playthrough. The non-commentary version can be found in the description. It's important to note that this commentary is made to be suitable to even novice players of the game, which is why things that may be painfully obvious to some are still explained. As the title suggests, this run meets the requirements for all achievements and/or trophies available on both PlayStation and Xbox ports of the game.
Hello? Hello? I wanted to record a message for you to help you get settled in on your first night. I actually worked in that office before you. I'm finishing up my last week now, as a matter of fact, so I know it can be a bit overwhelming, but I'm here to tell you there's nothing to worry about. You'll do fine. So let's just focus on getting you through your first week, okay? Let's see. First, there's an introductory greeting from the company that I'm supposed to read. It's kind of a legal thing, you know. Welcome to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, a magical place for kids and grown-ups alike, where fantasy and fun come to life. Fazbear Entertainment is not responsible for damage to property or person. Upon discovering that damage or death has occurred, a missing person report will be filed within 90 days or as soon as property and premises have been thoroughly cleaned and bleached and the carpets have been replaced. Blah, blah, blah. Now, that might sound bad, I know, but there's really nothing to worry about. The animatronic characters here do get a bit quirky at night, but do I blame them? No. If I were forced to sing those same stupid songs for 20 years and I never got a bath, I'd probably be a bit irritable at night too. So remember, these characters hold a special place in the hearts of children and you need to show them a little respect, right? Okay. So just be aware, the characters do tend to wander a bit. They're left in some kind of free roaming mode at night. Something about their servos locking up if they get turned off for too long. They used to be allowed to walk around during the day too, but then there was the bite of 87. Yeah, it's amazing that the human body can live without the frontal lobe, you know? Now, concerning your safety, the only real risk to you as a night watchman here, if any, is the fact that these characters, if they happen to see you after hours, probably won't recognize you as a person. They'll most likely see you as a metal endoskeleton without its costume on. Now, since that's against the rules here at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, they'll probably try to forcefully stuff you inside a Freddy Fazbear suit. Now, that wouldn't be so bad if the suits themselves weren't filled with cross beams, wires, and animatronic devices, especially around the facial area. So you can imagine how having your head forcefully pressed inside one of those could cause a bit of discomfort and death. The only parts of you that would likely see the light of day again would be your eyeballs and teeth when they pop out the front of the mask. Yeah, they don't tell you these things when you sign up. But hey, first station of the breeze. I'll chat with you tomorrow. Check those cameras and remember to close the doors only if absolutely necessary. Gotta conserve power. Alright, good night.
So, although the animatronic characters don't become active until well after the first call ends, I still took the chance to switch through the cameras because we're not going to be seeing a whole lot of different rooms throughout the walkthrough. If you're concerned about power, you needn't be, as it's only the first night. Of course, it's completely fine just to do nothing until the call ends, as to save power, if you'd prefer. So now that we've seen some movement from Bonnie, it now might be a good time to explain how the animatronics work as they become active. So I'll talk about Foxy and Freddy later on. As for Bonnie and Chica, they work very similarly to each other, with the main difference being where they attack from. Bonnie attacks from the left, whereas Chica attacks from the right. You'll see soon enough. Now, you may have picked up on the quiet melody that plays sometimes, as well as the humming. That's just Foxy behind the curtain. He becomes active on the second night, and I'll discuss him then. It's important to check your door lights when you suspect they're near, and to close the door that they're at if you see them. Of course, it's also important to keep tabs on whether they're still there or not, so you know when to open the door. Keeping the door closed results in an unnecessary wastage of power. So here, I see Bonnie at the door, so I close it and wait for him to leave. And although you can't see Bonnie's face when he's behind the closed door, you can tell he's still there because you can see his ears reflect on the glass. I'll check the light again soon, and I won't see the reflection of ears, so I'll know that the door is safe to open. So whenever you hear footsteps, it means one of them has moved. So if there's someone at your door, and you hear footsteps, it's likely that they've now left. Alternatively, it could also mean that another one of them has moved closer, so don't go opening the door without checking the lights first.
talk quite as long this time since Freddy and his friends tend to become more active as the week progresses. It might be a good idea to peek at those cameras while I talk, just to make sure everyone's in their proper place, you know. Interestingly enough, Freddy himself doesn't come off stage very often. I've heard he becomes a lot more active in the dark, though, so hey, I guess that's one more reason not to run out of power, right? I also want to emphasize the importance of using your door lights. There are blind spots in your camera views, and those blind spots happen to be right outside your doors. So if you can't find something or someone on your cameras, be sure to check the door light. You might only have a few seconds to react. Not that you would be in any danger, of course. I'm not implying that. Also, check on the curtain in Pirate Cove from time to time. The character in there seems unique in that he becomes more active if the cameras remain off for long periods of time. I guess he doesn't like being watched. I don't know. Anyway, I'm sure you have everything under control. Talk to you soon.
So, as it's the second night, not only does the difficulty ramp up a bit, but Foxy becomes active. Now, Foxy's aggression depends on how much attention you give him. If you become negligent and don't keep tabs on him, he'll start moving. He has 4 phases. His first phase is when his curtain is closed, his second phase is when his head is peeking out from the curtain, his third phase is when he's outside of the curtain, and his last phase is when he's not in Pirate Cove anymore because he's running. When he's running, you need to close the left door to keep him from getting into the office and killing you. When he makes his way to the office, he'll knock on the door 3 times. The door is safe to open after 1 knock, however. It usually takes him a little while to get to your office, which of course wastes power if your door is still closed. So what you can do is check the left hall cam. Checking the left hall cam when he's in the running phase will expedite the waiting process. So a visit from Foxy might not seem like too much of a problem, but if he does it more than once during the night, it can really start to be. Foxy drains 1% of your power on his first visit, 6% on the next, and then 11%. All subsequent visits will waste upwards of 11% more every time. So I'm sure that now you can understand why it's important to keep tabs on him, as to prevent him from entering the running phase. Sometimes though, there can be variables with how your night plays out. This is just a matter of RNG for the most part. An example of this is when certain animatronics may be more active on some attempts than they are on others, and vice versa. So chances are that you might get an attempt where the other animatronics are especially active, so you're forced to focus on them instead of Foxy. So now, Foxy is moving because you weren't able to keep him at bay. This isn't a case of negligence, and more of a case of your luck. This is just an example of the game's RNG. So, onto other matters, you've probably picked up on the strategy I'm using. I'm alternating between keeping Foxy at bay and checking the door lights when I hear footsteps. Admittedly, sometimes I'll check the door lights even if I don't hear anything. This is just my paranoia. For the most part though, I do try to only check the door lights if I hear something. That reminds me, the reason I'm only checking the left door light at the moment is because I can hear Chica in the kitchen. If you hear her in the kitchen, then you don't need to check the right door light because you know she can't possibly be at your door, so it's not necessary to. More so, she's the only other animatronic apart from Freddy that attacks from the right doorway, and he's not active yet, so it would just be a waste of power to check the door light. The reason I checked there is because I couldn't hear her for a couple seconds at least, so I checked because I thought that she might have moved. It's important to listen out for her so you know if you should be checking the right door light or not. If you don't know the sound I'm referring to, it's a sort of plate clattering noise. If at any point, by the way, you try to check a door light or close a door and nothing happens, then unless the night's already about to finish, it's game over. Unresponsive panel buttons mean that they're already in your office.
don't last as long. I mean, you know, they usually move on to other things by now. I'm not implying that they died. That's not what I meant. Anyway, I better not take up too much of your time. Things are getting real tonight. Hey, listen, I had an idea. If you happen to get caught and want to avoid getting stuffed into a Freddy suit, try playing dead. You know, go limp. Then there's a chance that maybe they'll think that you're an empty costume instead. Then again, if they think you're an empty costume, they might try to stuff a metal skeleton into you. I wonder how that would work. Yeah, never mind. Scratch that. It's best just not to get caught. Okay, I'll leave you to it. See you on the flip side.
So, contrary to what seems to be popular belief because of what he says there, staying still when the power goes out actually has no effect on how long Freddy's wind-up goes for. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'll explain how Freddy works. So, Freddy's aggression works similarly to Foxy's in that he'll begin to move when you're not consistently looking at him. You can tell he's moved when you hear his distinctive laugh. You'll know when you hear it. So, Freddy's first phase is when he's on the show stage. His second phase is when he's in the party room. His third phase is when he's in the bathroom. His fourth phase is when he's in the kitchen. His fifth phase is when he's in the right hall on cam 4A. And his sixth phase is when he's in cam 4B, right outside your office on the right. So, similarly to Chica and unlike Bonnie and Foxy, he attacks from the right door. On most cameras, he doesn't appear in plain sight, but you can always tell where he is by looking for his glowing eyes. However, when he's in the kitchen, on the kitchen cam, the only way to tell he's there is because you can hear him playing March of the Toreadors. This can be heard clearly whether you're on the kitchen cam or not. Unlike Foxy though, Freddy is capable of moving back to rooms he was at previously. Of course, when Freddy is on cam 4B, if you want to check another camera, namely Pirate Cove, you ought to close the right door to prevent him from getting into the office. If you have another cam selected when he's on cam 4B, he will get into the office and it's game over shortly thereafter. So, as not to waste power having to keep the door closed, it's best just to keep Freddy at bay by checking the stage regularly. Even if Freddy's not on the stage anymore, it's still a good idea to keep tabs on him as to prevent him from moving closer to the office. So when the power goes out, all other animatronics will become inactive and Freddy will begin his wind-up, which brings me back to what I was talking about originally. So, Freddy's wind-up when the power goes out can last up to 50 seconds. The duration of the wind-up isn't dependent on luck, like some people seem to think, but instead, how conservative you've been with your power throughout the night. I'll elaborate. So a player who's being wasteful with their power and closing doors when it's not necessary to is more likely to get a short wind-up when their power goes out, whereas a more conservative player is more likely to get a longer wind-up because they conserved power adequately. So my point is that the duration of Freddy's wind-up is not at all dependent on the player's luck. In regards to how you're supposed to know that the amount of power you have is on par with the time you're at, remember this. You want 80% or above by 1am, 60% or above by 2am, 45% or above by 3am, 25% or above by 4am, and 10% or above by 5am. It's entirely possible to beat a night if your power isn't exactly on par with this, but if you hope to get a long wind-up if your power goes out, you need to be conservative. It's not incredibly strict though. On 420 mode, you'll see me hit 5am on 7% and still survive the night with a 50-second wind-up. Sometimes though, because of the game's RNG, you might have to waste more power than you should have. Unfortunately, this is just the way it is. You may have noticed as well that for the reasons I just stated, the strategy I was using for night 2 has been lightly modified for all subsequent nights, excluding night 7. Now, not only am I alternating between keeping an eye on Foxy, but I'm also keeping an eye on Freddy and alternating between the two of them each time I pull up the monitor. So it's pretty apparent that I've picked up the speed here tenfold. You don't at all need to move this fast to just complete the night, but the reason I am is because, as I said earlier, the playthrough meets the requirements for all achievements, and the no running achievement requires the player to beat the fourth night without Foxy running, and the reason I'm moving this fast is to prevent Foxy from entering another phase. Even though the achievement doesn't require this, I still thought it would be best to do this to sort of leave room for error for anyone else looking to unlock the achievement themselves. So, because I was trying so hard to keep Foxy at bay, this night ended up being harder than Night 5, even though I was going for Night 5's special achievement too, which, although I've mentioned briefly, I'll explain later on. Oh, and something I neglected to mention when I was talking about Freddy and power consumption was that if Freddy is in the office when the power goes out, this will in no way expedite his wind up, and it will continue as normal. So, as you've probably noticed, I let Freddy get pretty close to the office here because Foxy was my main priority as part of the achievement requirements. So, for the remainder of the night, I alternated between cams 4B and Pirate Cove so I could keep both Foxy and Freddy at bay until 6 am. So now I'll go into the requirements of this night's achievement, fittingly named No Laughing. So to get the achievement, you need to finish the night whilst preventing Freddy from ever reaching cams 4A or 4B. As for how to go about this, just play the game as I've taught you so far, and make sure to keep Freddy at bay. Don't spend too much time checking Pirate Cove, or you might let Freddy start moving. If you're really struggling to unlock the achievement and you're not concerned about wasting too much power, just follow the strategy I've been demonstrating since Night 3, but instead, each time the monitor is pulled down, check the door lights regardless of whether you hear an audio cue or not. This is a relatively easy method of beating the first 6 nights, but it highly increases the likelihood that the power will be out when the night is over. If you can either do this or replicate the way I play, of course being versatile when there are variables, you'll be able to beat the first 6 nights with relative ease. And that should be all. So for night 6, you ought to play the same way you've been playing since night 3, at fast enough pace. Again, if you don't care about beating the night with the power out, just completely ignore the audio cues and check the door lights anyway. Assuming you're being conservative in other means, you should get a long enough wind up to beat the night before Freddy kills you. An advantage to playing this way is that, unlike me, you'll likely be moving fast enough to keep Foxy from getting to one of his next phases, like I do. To be honest, I was trying to beat the first 6 nights without the power going out in order to create more of an effect for when I knew it inevitably would on night 7. Running out of power 4 nights in a row would lose its watch value, I feel, so if it was going to happen, I only wanted it to be once. This is why I tried to rely more on audio cues instead of relying too much on the lights, which would result in using more power. So I think now is a good time to talk about the upcoming Night 7. Night 7 is Custom Night. I'll explain what Custom Night is for those who don't know. So, Custom Night allows you to customize each of the animatronics AI level, with 20 being the highest and 0, of course, being the lowest. The higher the AI level, the more aggressive the animatronic will be. So, just to give perspective, 0 to 2 on the scale is easy, 3 to 6 is medium, 7 to 12 is hard, and anything above that is considered extreme. So what you'll see on the next night is commonly referred to as 420 mode, or 20-20-20-20 mode, as there are 4 animatronic characters, and all their AI levels are set to 20, making for an especially difficult night, meaning that the strategy that's been being used since night 3 will now be ineffective, since keeping Freddy at bay the way we have been is now impossible. I'll explain and demonstrate the strategy when it comes to the night itself. Okay, so here you can see me moving the cursor around to sort of train my wrist because I knew I was going to be moving the cursor a lot. So, first things first, you want to go to the Pirate Cove cam and flip it up and down over and over again until you hear Freddy laugh 4 times. You want to do this to increase the chances of Foxy staying at bay while you do other things. Of course, you'll obviously have to continue checking on him throughout the night, but flipping the camera up and down like I do at the start there is a good way to start the night. This may not always work though. There's every chance that he'll just be especially active on any given attempt. If he visits the office more than once, you want to just restart the night because he's already taken too much power. Okay, so the strategy mainly consists of keeping the camera on 4B to keep Freddy from getting into the office, whilst alternating between checking on him and checking the doors, of course closing them if Bonnie or Chica show up. If you check a different camera while Freddy is in cam 4B, then he'll get into your office and kill you shortly thereafter. So if you know you accidentally clicked on another camera while he was there, then again, unless the night is about to be over or the power is about to go out, just restart the night because you've already failed. As for how to deal with Foxy, whenever it's necessary to close a door, just close both of them and then check on him. This is what I do anyway. Alternatively, what you can do is play the night as I've said, but instead only close the right door when checking on Foxy as to keep Freddy from getting in. By doing this successfully, you save more power than you would by closing both doors, but you also run the risk of Bonnie getting into your office and killing you. So if you do this, you want to be sure he's not too close before you check Pirate Cove, and you want to be quick with checking. Regardless of what variation of the strategy you use, you need to remember to put the camera back on 4B before opening the right door again, or Freddy will very likely get in. If Foxy is in his third phase when you check on him, you can continue playing as you were, but you need to keep in mind that he could start running any minute. I believe there is a way to hear if Foxy is in phase 4, but the audio cue sounds indistinguishable from Bonnie and Chica, at least to me. So what I like to do is make an educated guess of whether or not he's left or not based on my judgment. You should have enough time once he's in phase 4 to act before he kills you. If you've made your guess, close both doors and check Pirate Cove. If he's still there, continue playing as normal, and if not, check the hall cam, which will speed up his trip to your office, as mentioned earlier, and then instantly go back to 4B and open the doors once you hear him knock once, of course if the coast is clear from Bonnie and Chica. You just want to be fast. You don't want to spend too much time with the doors closed, or you'll of course end up using way more power than necessary. I know this all sounds very complicated, but it's easier than you may think. My main advice is to play fast and keep Foxy in mind. Keeping tabs on everyone else is the easiest part. With a bit of luck, as long as you know what you're doing and are attentive, you'll finish the night with relative ease. For the record, I've beaten 420 mode about a dozen times, and this is probably one of my worst successful attempts. I've once gotten a run where I've hit 6 AM before Freddy begins his wind-up. For the sake of this video though, I'm happy I cleared the night right at the end of Freddy's wind-up, as I feel it leaves room for error for anyone else attempting to replicate the way I play here. What I mean is that there's every chance that you may get a much luckier attempt than what I got here. Hell, you may even play way better than what I've demonstrated here. Okay, so that pretty much wraps everything up. This will earn you all 3 stars on the main menu, and all available achievements or trophies if you're playing on the PlayStation or Xbox ports of the game. I hope this was able to help in some way, or at least be informative or entertaining.